On a stormy October night in 2013, 8-year-old Penny Holloway disappeared from her hospital bed without a trace. The locked room, the empty hallway, the missing child, nothing made sense. For 12 long years, her family searched for answers that never came. Then something impossible happened. A baby was born in the same small town, and her parents named her Penny Holloway Reed, the exact same name as the missing girl. Someone had sent the new parents a mysterious letter telling them to use this name. But who would do such a thing? And after 12 years of silence, why were they finally ready to reveal the truth about what happened that terrible night? The long white hallway stretched out in front of Meredith Coolidge like a silent ghost. Her soft shoes made quiet sounds on the shiny floor as she walked past room after room. It was 2 in the morning, and Millbrook General Hospital felt like a sleeping giant. Meredith had been a nurse for 15 years. She loved the night shift because it was peaceful. Most patients slept soundly. The hall stayed quiet. She could check on everyone without the busy noise of daytime. Tonight felt different, though. Something in the air made her feel uneasy. She could not put her finger on what was wrong. Maybe it was the storm outside. Rain hit the windows hard, and wind made the old building creak. She stopped at room 314 and looked at her clipboard. Penny Holloway, age 8. The little girl had been there for 3 days with a high fever. The doctors said she was getting better. Her parents could take her home tomorrow. Meredith smiled thinking about Penny. The girl had bright brown eyes and curly hair that bounced when she laughed. She loved to draw pictures of flowers and give them to the nurses. Yesterday she had drawn a picture of a rainbow for Meredith. "For you," Penny had said, holding up the colorful drawing. "Because you take such good care of me." Meredith still had the picture in her pocket. She knocked softly on the door to room 314. No answer. That was normal. Penny was probably sleeping. Meredith turned the handle and pushed the door open. The room was dark except for a small light above the bed. Meredith could see the shape of the bed, the chair where Penny's mom had sat earlier, and the window with rain running down it. But something was wrong. The bed was empty. Meredith felt her heart skip. She turned on the main light and looked around the room. The white sheets were pulled back. Penny's stuffed rabbit sat on the pillow, but Penny was not there. "Penny," Meredith called softly. Maybe the girl was in the bathroom. She checked the small bathroom. Empty. Meredith felt panic rising in her chest. She looked under the bed, behind the chair, even in the tiny closet. Penny was nowhere to be found. The window was closed and locked from the inside. The only way out was through the door, and Meredith would have seen anyone walking in the hallway. Where could an 8-year-old girl go? Meredith ran to the nurse's station. Her hands shook as she picked up the phone. "Security to room 314, please. We have a missing patient." Within minutes, 2 security guards rushed down the hallway. Tom Bradley had worked at the hospital for 10 years. He was a big man with kind eyes. Lisa Park was newer, but very smart and careful. "What happened?" Tom asked. "Penny Holloway is gone," Meredith said. "I checked on her at 2 o'clock. The room is empty." Lisa looked confused. "Gone? How can she be gone?" They all went back to room 314. Tom checked the window again. It was definitely locked from inside. Lisa looked at the bathroom and closet. Meredith picked up Penny's stuffed rabbit and held it tight. "We need to search the whole floor," Tom said. Maybe she got confused and wandered off. But Meredith knew that was not right. Penny had been very sick. She was weak and tired. She would not have the energy to walk around the hospital by herself. The 3 of them split up and searched every room on the floor. They looked in supply closets, empty patient rooms, and the break room. They checked the stairwells and the elevator. Penny was nowhere. "We need to call the police," Lisa said. Tom nodded. "And we need to call her parents." Meredith felt sick to her stomach. How could she tell Penny's mom and dad that their little girl was missing? They had trusted the hospital to keep her safe. At 2:30 in the morning, Meredith made the hardest phone call of her life. "Mrs. Holloway, this is Meredith from the hospital. I need you and your husband to come in right away. Is Penny okay?" Sarah Holloway's voice was full of worry. Meredith closed her eyes. "Please just come to the hospital. We'll explain everything when you get here." 20 minutes later, David and Sarah Holloway rushed through the hospital doors. David was tall, with messy hair, like he had jumped out of bed quickly. Sarah was small with worried eyes. She clutched her purse like it could protect her from bad news. "Where's our daughter?" David demanded. Meredith led them to room 314. The empty bed seemed to scream at them. Sarah let out a sound like a hurt animal. Where is she? Where is my baby? We don't know, Meredith said softly. I found her room empty at 2 o'clock. We've searched everywhere. David grabbed Tom's arm. What do you mean you don't know? How does a sick 8-year-old just disappear? Sir, we're doing everything we can, Tom said. The police are on their way. Sarah sat down hard in the chair next to Penny's bed. She picked up the stuffed rabbit and held it against her chest. Tears ran down her face. This is Mr. Buttons, she whispered. Penny can't sleep without Mr. Buttons. She's scared of the dark. The words hit everyone like a punch. Somewhere out there, a little girl was alone and scared without her favorite toy. Detective Rosa Martinez arrived at 3:15 a.m. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a calm voice. She had been a police officer for 20 years and had seen many bad things. But missing children cases always made her stomach hurt. Tell me everything, Detective Martinez said. Meredith explained about finding the empty room. Tom and Lisa told her about searching the hospital. The detective wrote everything down in a small notebook. Who was the last person to see Penny? She asked. I checked on her at 11 p.m., said Janet, the evening nurse. She was sleeping. Her fever was down. She looked much better. Detective Martinez looked at the window again. She tested the lock and looked outside. The window was on the second floor. Even if someone could climb up from outside, they could not get through a locked window. What about the cameras? She asked. Tom looked embarrassed. The camera for this hallway has been broken for 2 weeks. We were waiting for a new part. Detective Martinez wrote that down too. She asked to see the cameras from other parts of the hospital. They spent an hour looking at video from the lobby, the parking lot, and the emergency room. Nothing looked strange. No one carried a child. No one acted suspicious. As the sun came up, more police officers arrived. They searched the hospital from top to bottom. They looked in places the security guards had already checked. They brought dogs to try to follow Penny's scent. The dogs tracked Penny's smell from her room, down the hallway, and to the elevator. The trail went to the first floor and out to the parking lot. Then it stopped. It's like she just vanished into thin air, one officer said. Sarah sat in the empty hospital room, holding Mr. Buttons. She rocked back and forth and whispered her daughter's name over and over. Penny, Penny, where are you, baby girl? Outside, the storm was ending. The sun was coming up on a day that would change everything for the Holloway family. It was the first day of a mystery that would haunt Millbrook for 12 long years. Detective Martinez stood in the parking lot looking at the sky. She made a promise to herself and to the little girl with curly hair who loved to draw rainbows. I will find you, Penny Holloway, she said quietly. I will never stop looking. But as she walked back into the hospital, Detective Martinez had no idea that it would take 12 years and a newborn baby's birth certificate to finally learn the truth about what happened that terrible night. The night everything changed at BY7 in the morning. The news was all over Millbrook. A little girl had vanished from the hospital. People could not believe it. How does a child just disappear from her bed? Sarah Holloway sat in the hospital cafeteria, staring at a cup of cold coffee. She had not slept. She had not eaten. All she could think about was Penny somewhere out there, scared and alone. David paced back and forth by the windows. His phone rang every few minutes. Friends, family, and neighbors all wanted to know what happened. He stopped answering the calls. Detective Martinez had been up all night too. She sat at her desk at the police station making lists of everyone who worked at the hospital that night. She wrote down every visitor, every delivery person, every cleaner. Someone had to know something. The hospital gave her a room to use as headquarters. She spread papers and photos across a long table. In the center was a school picture of Penny. The little girl smiled at the camera with bright eyes and missing front teeth. We need to find this child, Detective Martinez told her team. I want every person who was in that hospital questioned. I want every car in the parking lot checked. I want to know who delivered food, who emptied the trash, who fixed the broken machines. Officer Mike Chin had worked with Detective Martinez for 5 years. He was young, but very careful with details. What about the family? Should we look at them too? Detective Martinez nodded. We look at everyone, but start with the hospital staff. Someone with access took this child. By noon, the whole town was searching. Mayor Johnson called for volunteers to meet at the community center. More than 300 people showed up. They came with flashlights, water bottles, and worried faces. "We're going to find Penny Holloway," the mayor said. "We're going to bring her home safe." The volunteers split into groups. Some searched the woods behind the hospital. Others walked through every park in town. They looked in old buildings, empty houses, and abandoned cars. Mrs. Patterson, who taught Sunday school, organized the women to make sandwiches and lemonade for the searchers. "That poor little girl," she said, tears in her eyes. "She must be so frightened." The men from the fire department brought their trucks and searched from high places. They looked on rooftops and in tall trees. The water rescue team dragged the pond in Central Park, hoping they would not find anything. Dogs came from the state police. German shepherds with wet noses and serious faces. They sniffed Penny's clothes and toys. The dogs followed her scent through the hospital and out to the parking lot, just like before. Then the trail went cold. "It's like she got into a car," said Handler Brooks, who worked with the dogs. "The scent just stops." Detective Martinez felt her heart sink. If Penny had been put in a car, she could be anywhere by now. She could be in another state. She could be, Detective Martinez pushed the dark thoughts away. She had to stay positive. She had to keep looking. At the hospital, Dr. Williams tried to explain what had happened to other patients and families. People were scared. If a child could disappear from a hospital bed, nowhere was safe. "We're adding more security," he promised. "We're putting cameras in every hallway. This will never happen again." But his words felt empty. It had already happened. One little girl was already gone. The FBI arrived on the second day. Agent Susan Torres was a specialist in missing children cases. She had short gray hair and serious eyes that had seen too much sadness. "Statistics show that the first 48 hours are the most important," Agent Torres told Detective Martinez. "After that, the chances of finding a child alive drop significantly." Detective Martinez felt sick. They were already past the 48-hour mark. Agent Torres set up a command center in the high school gym. She brought computers, phones, and maps. FBI agents worked around the clock taking tips from people who thought they had seen Penny. A girl matching her description was seen at a gas station in Springfield, one agent reported. "Someone thinks they saw her at a McDonald's in Riverside," said another. Every tip had to be checked. Police officers drove to gas stations, restaurants, and stores. They showed Penny's picture to clerks and customers. Most of the tips led nowhere. People wanted to help, but they were seeing things that were not really there. The media came to town on the third day. News trucks parked outside the hospital and the police station. Reporters with microphones asked hard questions. "Do you think someone who works at the hospital took Penny?" A reporter asked Detective Martinez. "We're looking at all possibilities," she answered. "Is this family connected to any criminal activity?" Another reporter wanted to know. "The Holloways are good people who just want their daughter back," Detective Martinez said firmly, but the questions planted seeds of doubt in some people's minds. At the grocery store and the post office, neighbors whispered to each other. "Maybe the parents know more than they're saying," someone suggested. "Why would they leave a sick child alone at night?" Another person wondered. These whispers hurt David and Sarah deeply. They had lost their daughter, and now some people were blaming them. Sarah stopped going to the grocery store because people stared at her. David took time off work because he could not concentrate. They sat in their living room waiting for the phone to ring with good news. The phone rang often, but it was never good news. It was reporters wanting interviews. It was police officers asking the same questions over and over. It was well-meaning friends who did not know what to say. After 2 weeks, the FBI scaled back their search. Agent Torres met with Detective Martinez. In private, "We've followed every lead," Agent Torres said. "We've checked every tip. We've interviewed hundreds of people. There's no physical evidence, no witnesses, no clear suspects." Detective Martinez felt defeated. "So we just give up?" "We don't give up, but we have to be realistic. This case is going cold." Agent Torres packed up her computers and maps. The FBI agents went back to other cases in other towns. The news trucks drove away to cover other stories, but Detective Martinez stayed. This was her town. This was her case. She moved Penny's file to the top of her desk, where she would see it every day. The search volunteers slowly stopped coming. People had jobs to go back to and families to take care of. The yellow ribbons that had been tied to trees around town faded in the sun and rain. David and Sarah's marriage began to crack under the pressure. They grieved differently. David wanted to stay busy and keep searching. Sarah wanted to sit quietly. and wait for Penny to come home. We have to accept that she might not be coming back, David said one night. Sarah turned on him with fire in her eyes. Don't you ever say that. Don't you ever give up on our daughter. They stopped talking to each other except to argue. The house that had once been filled with Penny's laughter became cold and silent. 2 months after Penny disappeared, Detective Martinez sat in her office late at night. She was the only one still working on the case every day. She read through witness statements for the 100th time. She studied the hospital layout. She looked at the timeline of that terrible night. Something was missing. Some piece of the puzzle that would make everything clear. But she could not find it. Outside her window, Millbrook looked normal again. People walked their dogs and drove to work. Children played in the parks. Life went on. But Detective Martinez knew that nothing would ever be the same. A little girl with curly hair and bright eyes was still out there somewhere. And until she was found, the town would carry a piece of broken heart. She picked up Penny's school picture and made the same promise she had made that first morning. I will find you, Penny Holloway. I will never stop looking. The search was just beginning. 12 years passed like a slow, painful dream. Detective Martinez was now Chief Martinez. She had gray streaks in her dark hair and lines around her eyes from too many sleepless nights. But Penny Holloway's file still sat on her desk, right where everyone could see it. Every year on October 15th, the day Penny disappeared, Chief Martinez would take out the thick folder. She would read every witness statement again. She would look at every photo. She would call the FBI to ask if any new cases matched Penny's description. The answer was always the same. Nothing. The town of Millbrook had moved on, mostly. New families came to live there. Children were born who had never heard of Penny Holloway. The hospital had been rebuilt with new security cameras and locked doors everywhere. But some people never forgot. Sarah Holloway still lived in town, though. Not in the same house. After the divorce, she had moved to a small apartment above the flower shop on Main Street. She was 43 now, with sad eyes and hair that had turned gray too early. She still taught second grade at Millbrook Elementary. The children loved her because she was patient and kind. But other teachers noticed that Sarah always kept one empty desk in her classroom. When someone asked about it, she would say it was for visitors. Everyone knew it was really for Penny. Sarah had never remarried. How could she love someone new when part of her heart was still lost? Every night, she would sit by her window and look out at the street, hoping to see a young woman with curly hair walking home. Penny would be 20 now. What would she look like? Would she remember her mother? Would she ever come back? David Holloway had tried harder to move on. He lived in California now with his new wife, Linda, and their twin boys. He worked for a computer company and coached Little League Baseball. Linda knew about Penny, of course. David had told her the story on their third date. But they never talked about it much. David said it was too painful to remember. Sometimes Linda would catch him staring at nothing, and she knew he was thinking about his lost daughter. The boys, Jake and Sam, knew they had a sister somewhere, but David did not like to talk about her. Daddy gets sad when we ask about Penny, Jake told his friend once. So we don't ask. The divorce had been bitter and painful. Sarah blamed David for giving up hope. David blamed Sarah for not letting him heal. They had not spoken in 2 years. Meredith Coolidge, the nurse who found Penny's empty room, had quit nursing 6 months after the disappearance. She could not stand being in hospitals anymore. Every empty bed reminded her of that terrible night. She became a kindergarten teacher instead. She loved working with little children because their joy helped heal her broken heart. But she still had nightmares sometimes about walking into room 314 and finding it empty. Meredith lived alone with 3 cats and a garden full of flowers. She never married because she said she could not trust herself to keep anyone safe. In the cemetery at the edge of town, there was a small headstone that read, Penny Holloway, forever 8 years old, beloved daughter. Sarah had bought it 5 years after Penny disappeared, when she finally accepted that her daughter might never come home. Every Sunday, Sarah would visit the grave. There was no body buried there, just memories and hope. She would bring fresh flowers and sit on the grass to talk. I had a good week teaching, she would say to the stone. There's a little girl in my class who reminds me of you. She draws pictures of rainbows, just like you did. Sometimes other people from town would stop by the grave. Mrs. Patterson, who was now very old, would leave small toys. The fire chief would put a flag there on Memorial Day. The town had not forgotten Penny completely. But the sharp pain of her disappearance had faded to a dull ache. At the hospital, things had changed a lot. Dr. Williams had retired. Most of the nurses and security guards from that night had moved away or found new jobs. The new staff knew the story, but it felt like ancient history to them. The only person who still worked there from that night was Maria Santos. She had been a young cleaning lady 12 years ago. Now she was the head of housekeeping with graying hair and worried eyes. Maria had 4 children of her own. The oldest was 15, just a few years younger than Penny would be now. Every night when Maria got home from work, she hugged her children extra tight. "You never know," she would tell her husband. "You just never know when something terrible might happen." Maria's daughter Elena was in Sarah's 2nd grade class now. Elena loved her teacher, but she could tell that Mrs. Holloway was sad about something. "Why does Mrs. Holloway always look like she's waiting for someone?" Elena asked her mother one day. Maria's eyes filled with tears. "Because she is, mi amor. She's waiting for someone who might never come." Old man Peterson, who had lived near the hospital, was 87 now. He spent most of his time in a rocking chair on his front porch, watching the world go by. His memory was not as good as it used to be, but he still remembered that awful night clearly. He thought about the woman in scrubs he had seen leaving the hospital. He had told the police about her, but they never found out who she was. Sometimes, he wondered if he should have followed her. Maybe he could have saved Penny. Peterson's neighbor, Dorothy Chun, was 72 and living in the Sunset Manor nursing home. She had dementia now and often forgot where she was. But sometimes, in her clearer moments, she would cry about something she called the terrible secret. The nurses thought she was confused. They did not know that Dorothy carried a weight that had been crushing her for 12 long years. At the police station, Chief Martinez had solved many cases since Penny disappeared. She had caught burglars and drug dealers. She had helped find missing pets and runaway teenagers. But Penny's case haunted her like no other. New officers would ask about the thick file on her desk. Chief Martinez would tell them the story. Some of the younger officers thought she should let it go. "It's been 12 years, Chief," Officer Williams said one day. "Maybe it's time to put the file away." Chief Martinez looked at him with sharp eyes. "A little girl is still missing. Her family still needs answers. I will never put this file away." In the evidence room at the station, Penny's stuffed rabbit sat in a clear plastic bag. Mr. Buttons looked old and faded now, but Chief Martinez made sure he was stored safely. Someday, she hoped to give him back to Penny. Or at least to Sarah. The town had changed in other ways too. New shops opened on Main Street. The old movie theater was torn down and replaced with a coffee shop. Young families moved in and old people moved away, but something stayed the same. Every October, yellow ribbons appeared on trees around town. Someone always remembered to honor Penny's disappearance day. The newspaper would run a small story asking people to call if they had any information. The tips had stopped coming years ago. People had nothing new to say. The trail was as cold as winter snow. At Millbrook Elementary, there was a small garden behind the building. The teachers had planted it 7 years ago in memory of children who had died or gone missing. In the center was a rose bush with a small sign that read, "For Penny, may you find your way home." Sarah had helped plant that bush. She visited it every day after school. Sometimes she would find drawings that her students had left there. Pictures of flowers and rainbows and little girls with curly hair. The children did not really understand what had happened to Penny. They just knew their teacher was sad, and they wanted to help her smile. As the 12th anniversary of Penny's disappearance approached, Chief Martinez felt the familiar weight of failure. She had promised to find Penny. She had sworn never to give up. But 12 years of searching had led nowhere. Late at night, when the station was empty, Chief Martinez would take out Penny's school photo. The little girl's bright smile seemed to ask the same question over and over. "Why haven't you found me yet?" "I'm still trying." Chief Martinez would whisper to the picture. "I'm still looking for you." But deep in her heart, she was starting to wonder if Penny Holloway would ever be found. Maybe some mysteries were meant to stay unsolved. Maybe some little girls were meant to disappear into the night and never come home. Chief Martinez hated thinking that way. But 12 years of dead ends and false hopes had worn her down. She was tired of carrying the weight of a promise she might never be able to keep. What she did not know was that in just a few days, a baby would be born across town. A baby whose birth certificate would change everything. A baby whose name would Unlock the secret that had been buried for 12 long years. The ghosts of the past were about to become real again. Janet Wu loved her job at the county records office. She had worked there for 8 years, filing birth certificates, marriage licenses, and death records. It was quiet work that let her listen to music and think about her own family. On a Tuesday morning in October, Janet was sorting through the newest birth certificates. Babies born over the weekend needed their paperwork filed properly. She hummed softly as she worked, checking that all the information was correct. Most birth certificates were boring. Baby Smith, Baby Johnson, Baby Garcia. Parents usually picked normal names like Michael or Jennifer or Ashley. Sometimes there were unusual names that made Janet smile. Last week, someone had named their daughter Rainbow, but when Janet picked up the next certificate, she stopped humming. Her hands started to shake. The baby's name was Penny Holloway Reed. Janet stared at the paper, reading it 3 times to make sure she was seeing it right. Born October 12th to parents Emma Catherine Reed and Marcus James Reed. Weight, 6 pounds, 4 ounces. Length, 19 inches. Healthy baby girl. But the name, that name, everyone in Millbrook knew about Penny Holloway. Even people who had moved to town after the disappearance had heard the story. A little girl who vanished from her hospital bed 12 years ago. A mystery that was never solved. Janet's heart pounded as she looked at the birth certificate again. Why would parents give their baby the exact same name as a missing child? It had to be more than a coincidence. She walked quickly to her supervisor's office. Mrs. Chun was an older woman who had lived in Millbrook her whole life. She would definitely remember the case. Mrs. Chun, I need to show you something, Janet said, holding out the birth certificate. Mrs. Chun put on her reading glasses and looked at the paper. Her face went pale. Oh my, she whispered. This can't be right. I checked it 3 times, Janet said. The name is definitely Penny Holloway Reed. Mrs. Chun sat down heavily in her chair. I remember when that little girl disappeared. The whole town was looking for her. It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. Should we call someone? Janet asked. Mrs. Chun nodded. Call the police. Chief Martinez will want to know about this right away. Janet's hands trembled as she dialed the police station. When the receptionist answered, Janet could barely speak. This is Janet Wu from the county records office. I need to speak with Chief Martinez. It's about the Penny Holloway case. Hold on, the receptionist said. I'll get her right away. Within minutes, Chief Martinez was on the phone. This is Chief Martinez. What do you have for me? Chief, I'm filing birth certificates, and I found something strange. A baby born 3 days ago is named Penny Holloway Reed. The parents are Emma and Marcus Reed. There was silence on the other end of the phone. Then Chief Martinez spoke in a voice that sounded stunned. Are you sure about the name? I've checked it multiple times. Penny Holloway Reed, born October 12th. I'm coming over right now. Don't let anyone else see that certificate. Chief Martinez hung up the phone and sat staring at her desk. Penny's file was right there, as always. She had just been reading through it that morning, like she did every October. This could not be a coincidence. In 12 years of investigating missing children cases, she had never seen anything like this. Why would new parents choose the name of a missing child? Chief Martinez grabbed her keys and drove to the records office faster than she should have. Her mind raced with possibilities. Maybe the parents knew something about the original case. Maybe they had information they had never shared, or maybe this was just a cruel joke. When she arrived at the records office, Janet was waiting with the birth certificate in her hands. Chief Martinez took it and read every detail carefully. Emma Catherine Reed, age 25. Marcus James Reed, age 28. Both born in Oregon. Both living at 247 Maple Street in Millbrook for the past 3 years. Do you know these people? Chief Martinez asked Janet. I've never heard of them. But if they've lived here for 3 years, they must know about the original Penny Holloway case. Chief Martinez studied the certificate again. Everything looked normal except for that name. Penny Holloway Reed. It sent chills down her spine. I need to talk to these parents, Chief Martinez said. Something is not right here. She drove back to the police station and ran a background check on Emma and Marcus Reed. Both had clean records. No arrests, no criminal history. Emma worked as a librarian at the community college. Marcus was a carpenter who did work for several local businesses. They seemed like normal, law-abiding people. So why had they given their daughter the name of a missing child? Chief Martinez looked up their address. 247, Maple Street was a small house in a quiet neighborhood. She had driven past it hundreds of times over the years. It was blue with white shutters and a small front yard. She decided to drive by the house before making contact. She wanted to see what kind of people the Reeds were. Maybe she could learn something by watching them. At 247, Maple Street, Chief Martinez parked across the street and observed the house. It looked well-maintained, but not expensive. There was a small garden in the front yard and an old red truck in the driveway. After about 20 minutes, a man came out of the house. He was tall with dark hair and work clothes. He got into the truck and drove away. This must be Marcus Reed. Chief Martinez made notes about what she saw. The house looked normal. The neighborhood was quiet and safe. Nothing seemed suspicious, but that name kept bothering her. Penny Holloway Reed. There had to be a reason. She drove back to the station and called the hospital where the baby was born. Maybe someone there could tell her more about the Reed family. This is Chief Martinez from Millbrook Police. I need information about a baby born there on October 12th. Penny Holloway Reed. The nurse who answered the phone was helpful. Yes, I remember that birth. Very normal delivery. The parents seemed nice and excited about their first baby. Did they say anything about why they chose that name? Not to me, but I remember thinking it was an unusual choice. Most people don't use Holloway as a middle name. Chief Martinez felt her detective instincts kicking in. Something was definitely strange about this situation. She needed to talk to the Reed family face to face. She decided to visit them that evening when they would both be home from work. She would ask them directly about the name choice. Maybe they had a simple explanation, or maybe they had information about Penny Holloway that could finally solve the 12-year-old mystery. As Chief Martinez prepared for the visit, she felt something she had not felt in years about this case. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, this strange birth certificate was the key she had been looking for. Maybe Penny Holloway was about to come home at last. She picked up the phone to call Sarah Holloway. Sarah deserved to know about this development before anyone else. Sarah, this is Chief Martinez. I need to tell you something about your daughter's case. Something very unusual has happened. Sarah's hand shook as she held the phone. Chief Martinez's words echoed in her mind. Something unusual about Penny's case. After 12 years of silence, what could it be? What do you mean? Sarah whispered. Did you find her? No, Sarah. But someone just had a baby and named her Penny Holloway. I think you should know before I go talk to the family. Sarah felt like the world was spinning. Someone had named their baby after her lost daughter? Why would anyone do that? I don't understand, she said, sitting down hard on her couch. Neither do I, but I'm going to find out. I'll call you after I talk to them. After Chief Martinez hung up, Sarah sat in her empty apartment staring at the wall. Above her fireplace was a photo of Penny on her 8th birthday, just 2 months before she disappeared. The little girl smiled at the camera with chocolate cake on her face. Sarah touched the glass gently. Someone remembers you, baby girl, she whispered. Meanwhile, Chief Martinez drove to 247 Maple Street as the sun was setting. The blue house looked peaceful in the golden light. She could see warm light glowing in the windows. She took a deep breath and walked up to the front door. This was the moment that might change everything. She knocked 3 times and waited. The door opened to reveal a young woman with tired eyes and a kind face. She was holding a tiny baby wrapped in a soft pink blanket. The woman looked surprised to see a police officer at her door. Are you Emma Reed? Chief Martinez asked gently. Yes. Is something wrong? Emma's voice was worried. I'm Chief Martinez from Millbrook Police. I wondered if we could talk about your daughter's name. Emma's face went very pale. She looked back into the house, then stepped outside and closed the door behind her. What about her name? Emma asked quietly. Penny Holloway was also the name of a little girl who disappeared from our hospital 12 years ago. I'm sure you remember the case. Emma held her baby closer. Yes, I remember. Chief Martinez studied Emma's face. The young mother looked nervous, but not guilty. More like she was scared of getting in trouble. May I come inside? I'd like to talk to you and your husband about why you chose that name. Emma nodded and led Chief Martinez into a small living room. The house was neat and cozy, with baby toys scattered around and the smell of dinner cooking. Marcus Reed came out of the kitchen wearing an apron. He was exactly as Chief Martinez had seen him earlier, tall, dark-haired, with kind eyes. This is Chief Martinez, Emma told her husband. She wants to ask about Penny's name. Marcus and Emma sat together on the couch. Chief Martinez sat across from them in a comfortable chair. Baby Penny slept peacefully in her mother's arms. "We're not in trouble, are we?" Marcus asked. "It's not against the law to name your baby anything you want." "No, you're not in trouble," Chief Martinez said. "But it's a very unusual coincidence. I need to understand why you chose that exact name." Emma and Marcus looked at each other for a long moment. They seemed to be having a silent conversation with their eyes. "Tell her about the letter," Emma finally said. Marcus got up and walked to a small desk by the window. He opened a drawer and took out an envelope. It was white and looked like it had been handled many times. "We got this 2 weeks before Penny was born," Marcus said, handing the envelope to Chief Martinez. The envelope was addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Reed in shaky handwriting. There was no return address. Chief Martinez opened it carefully and found a single piece of paper inside. The note was short and written in the same shaky handwriting. "Name her Penny Holloway. She deserves to be remembered." Chief Martinez stared at the letter. Her heart was beating fast. Someone had told the Reeds to use this name. But who? And why? "When exactly did you receive this?" she asked. "September 28th, Emma said. "It was just sitting in our mailbox with the regular mail." "Did you recognize the handwriting?" "No, we've never seen it before." Chief Martinez studied the letter again. The handwriting was definitely from someone older. The letter shook like the person's hand was not steady. "Why did you decide to follow the instructions?" she asked. Emma and Marcus looked at each other again. Emma spoke first. "It sounds strange, but something about the letter felt important. Like we were supposed to do what it said." Marcus nodded. "We had already chosen the name Emma for a girl, after Emma's grandmother. But when we got that letter, we both felt like we should change our minds. We talked about it for hours," Emma added. "We researched the original Penny Holloway case online. We read about her family and how she disappeared. It broke our hearts." Chief Martinez could see that these young parents were sincere. They were not trying to hurt anyone or cause trouble. "We thought maybe if we named our daughter Penny Holloway, it would keep the missing girl's memory alive," Marcus said. "Like she wouldn't be forgotten." "Did you think about how this might affect the original family?" Chief Martinez asked gently. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "We did think about that. We worried we might be causing them pain. But the letter made it seem like the right thing to do." Chief Martinez looked at the sleeping baby. Little Penny Reed was beautiful, with tiny hands and long eyelashes. She had no idea that her name was connected to a 12-year-old mystery. "I need to ask you both some questions about that time period," Chief Martinez said. "Where were you living 12 years ago?" "We weren't even together then," Emma said. "I was 13 years old, living in foster care in Portland, Oregon." "I was 15 and living with my grandmother in Seattle," Marcus added. "We didn't meet until college." Chief Martinez made notes. These people had no connection to the original case. They were just young parents who had received a mysterious letter. "Have you shown this letter to anyone else?" she asked. "No. We thought people might think we were crazy," Emma said. Chief Martinez stood up. She needed to take the letter back to the station for analysis. Maybe they could find fingerprints or trace the paper. "I'm going to need to keep this letter for testing," she said. "And I may need to talk to you again." "Are we in trouble?" Marcus asked again. "No. But this letter might be a clue in a very old case. Someone wanted you to use that name for a reason." As Chief Martinez walked back to her car, her mind was racing. Who had sent that letter? Someone who knew about Penny's case. Someone who wanted her memory kept alive. But why choose the Reeds? And why wait 12 years to do something like this? She looked back at the blue house. Through the window, she could see Emma and Marcus sitting close together, holding their baby. They seemed like good people who had gotten caught up in something they did not understand. Back at the police station, Chief Martinez called the FBI lab. She needed the letter analyzed as quickly as possible. Handwriting, paper, ink, fingerprints, anything that might tell her who had written it. Then she called Sarah back. "The parents seem like good people," Chief Martinez explained. "But someone sent them a letter telling them to use Penny's name." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Someone wanted my daughter remembered." "Yes, and I'm going to find out who." As Chief Martinez hung up the phone, she felt more hopeful than she had in years. This letter was the first real clue she had found in 12 years. Someone out there knew something about Penny's disappearance, and now, finally, they were trying to tell her. The next morning, Chief Martinez arrived at work earlier than usual. She had barely slept, thinking about the mysterious letter. Someone in Millbrook knew something about Penny's disappearance. After 12 years of silence, they were finally ready to speak. But why now? And why use a newborn baby to send the message? Chief Martinez spread the letter on her desk under a bright lamp. The handwriting was shaky, like it belonged to someone, old or sick. The paper was ordinary white notebook paper. The ink looked like it came from a regular blue pen. She called the FBI lab in Springfield. "This is Chief Martinez in Millbrook. I'm sending you a letter that might be connected to the Penny Holloway case. I need it analyzed as soon as possible. We'll put a rush on it," the lab technician promised. Handwriting analysis, paper testing, fingerprints, the works. While she waited for the lab results, Chief Martinez decided to visit the Reed family again. She wanted to ask more questions about when and how they received the letter. AT-247, Maple Street. Emma Reed answered the door looking tired. Baby Penny had kept her parents up most of the night with crying. "I'm sorry to bother you again," Chief Martinez said, "but I need to ask a few more questions about that letter." Emma invited her inside. Marcus was at work, but Emma was happy to help. She made coffee, and they sat at the small kitchen table. "Tell me exactly how you found the letter," Chief Martinez said. Emma thought carefully. "It was a Tuesday afternoon. I came home from work at the library around 4 o'clock. I always check the mail when I get home. The letter was mixed in with bills and advertisements. Was there anything else unusual about that day?" "Not really. I remember being surprised because we don't usually get personal mail. Most people no, just text or email." Chief Martinez made notes. "Did you see anyone around your house that day? Any strangers in the neighborhood?" Emma shook her head. "No, but I wasn't really looking for anyone. I just thought it was regular mail at first." "What about Marcus? Did he notice anything?" "He wasn't home yet when I found it. He works until 5 most days." Chief Martinez asked to see the mailbox. It was a standard black mailbox at the end of the driveway, nothing special. Anyone could have put a letter inside. "One more question," Chief Martinez said. "Why did you and Marcus decide to move to Millbrook 3 years ago?" Emma smiled. "Marcus got a job with Patterson Construction. They build a lot of houses here. And I got the job at the community college library. It seemed like a nice place to start a family." As Chief Martinez drove back to the station, she thought about timing. The Reeds had moved to Millbrook 3 years ago. The letter arrived 2 weeks before their baby was born. Someone had been watching them, waiting for the right moment. But who? At the police station, Chief Martinez began making a list of everyone who might have sent the letter. It had to be someone who knew about the original Penny Holloway case, lived in or near Millbrook, had shaky handwriting, probably from age or illness, wanted Penny's memory preserved, knew about the Reed family's pregnancy. That last point was important. How would a stranger know that Emma Reed was pregnant with a girl? Someone must have seen her around town or heard people talking. Chief Martinez decided to visit some of the older residents of Millbrook. Maybe one of them would recognize the handwriting or have information about who might send such a letter. Her first stop was the Sunset Manor nursing home. Many elderly people lived there, and some of them had been in town during Penny's disappearance. If anyone had guilty knowledge about the case, this would be a good place to look. The nursing home was a cheerful place with flowers in the lobby and friendly staff. Chief Martinez asked to speak with the director. "I'm investigating an old case," she explained. "I need to talk to residents who were living in Millbrook 12 years ago." The director, Mrs. Williams, was helpful. "Most of our residents have been here for years. They love talking about the old days." Chief Martinez spent 2 hours interviewing elderly residents. She showed them copies of the handwriting from the letter. Most people were eager to help, but none of them recognized the writing. She was about to leave when a nurse pulled her aside. "You should talk to Dorothy Chun in room 24, the nurse said quietly. "She has dementia, but sometimes she talks about feeling guilty about something that happened years ago. She gets very upset about it." Chief Martinez knocked on the door of room 24. An elderly Asian woman was sitting by the window, staring outside. She had gray hair and sad eyes. "Mrs. Chun, I'm Chief Martinez. I'd like to ask you about something that happened 12 years ago." Dorothy Chun looked confused at first. Then her eyes seemed to focus. 12 years ago, she repeated slowly. "That was when the little girl disappeared." Chief Martinez felt her heart jump. "Do you remember Penny Holloway?" Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "I should have helped her. I should have been brave. What do you mean? But Dorothy's attention had drifted away again. She went back to staring out the window. The nurse came over. She has good days and bad days, the nurse explained. Today seems to be a harder day for her. Chief Martinez left her business card with the nurse. Please call me if Mrs. Chun has a clear moment and wants to talk. Back at the station, Officer Chun, no relation to Dorothy, had news about the Reed family's mail delivery. I talked to their mail carrier, Officer Chun reported. He says he didn't put any unusual letters in their mailbox that day. Everything he delivered was normal business mail. This meant someone had put the letter in the mailbox personally. They had walked up to the Reed house and placed it there. Chief Martinez was studying a map of the neighborhood when her phone rang. It was the FBI lab. We have preliminary results on your letter, the technician said. The handwriting shows signs of essential tremor. That's a medical condition that makes hands shake. The person who wrote this is probably over 60 and may have a neurological condition. What about fingerprints? We found 3 sets. 2 belong to the Reed couple. They match the prints we took for comparison. The 3rd set is partial and smudged, but they belong to an elderly woman. Chief Martinez felt excited. An elderly woman with shaky hands who had access to the Reed family's mailbox. This was the best lead she had gotten in years. Can you run the prints through the database? Already did. No matches in the criminal system. But the person might be in the system for other reasons, job applications, volunteer work, that kind of thing. Chief Martinez thought about Dorothy Chun at the nursing home. She had seemed to know something about Penny's case. Could she be the letter writer? The phone rang again. This time it was Sarah Holloway. Chief Martinez, I've been thinking about what you told me. About someone wanting Penny remembered. I want to meet the baby. Chief Martinez was surprised. Are you sure that's a good idea? I need to see her. I need to know that someone cares enough about my daughter to keep her name alive. Chief Martinez understood. For 12 years, Sarah had lived with the fear that Penny would be forgotten. Now, someone had made sure that would never happen. I'll call the Reed family and ask if they're comfortable with a visit. That evening, Chief Martinez called Emma Reed. She explained that Sarah Holloway wanted to meet baby Penny. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, of course she can. Visit. It's her daughter's name. She has every right. They arranged for Sarah to visit the next day. Chief Martinez would be there too. In case the meeting brought up new information about the case, she hung up the phone. Chief Martinez felt like the investigation was finally moving forward. The letter had opened doors that had been closed for 12 years. Someone in Millbrook had been carrying a secret about Penny Holloway. And now, finally, that secret was starting to come to light. Tomorrow's meeting might reveal even more. Sarah Holloway was about to meet the baby who carried her lost daughter's name. And Chief Martinez would be watching carefully for any new clues. The mystery was far from solved. But for the first time in 12 years, Chief Martinez felt like she was getting close to the truth. The next afternoon, Sarah Holloway stood outside 247 Maple Street holding a small gift bag. Inside was a soft yellow blanket she had bought for baby Penny. Her hands shook as she rang the doorbell. Chief Martinez stood beside her. Are you ready for this? Sarah nodded, though her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I've been ready for 12 years. Emma Reed opened the door with baby Penny in her arms. The moment Sarah saw the tiny face, she started crying. She's beautiful, Sarah whispered. Emma smiled gently. Would you like to hold her? Sarah's arms had been empty for 12 years. When Emma placed baby Penny in them, something inside Sarah's heart began to heal. The baby was warm and soft and smelled like powder and milk. Hello, little Penny, Sarah said softly. I'm so glad to meet you. They sat in the living room while Chief Martinez watched carefully. She was looking for any signs that this meeting might reveal new information about the case. I brought you something, Sarah told Emma, handing her the gift bag. Just a little blanket for the baby. Emma pulled out the soft yellow blanket with tiny ducks on it. It's perfect. Thank you so much. Marcus came home from work and joined them. He seemed nervous about meeting Sarah, but she put him at ease quickly. Thank you for keeping my daughter's name alive, Sarah told both parents. It means more to me than you'll ever know. Chief Martinez pulled out a copy of the mysterious letter. I'd like to ask all of you to look at this handwriting again. Does anyone recognize it? They all studied the shaky writing carefully. Sarah shook her head. I don't think I've seen this before. Emma and Marcus looked at it again too. Still nothing. Marcus said, "We've never seen handwriting like this." Chief Martinez was disappointed but not surprised. Finding the letter writer was going to take more detective work. As they talked, baby Penny began to fuss. Emma tried to calm her, but the baby kept crying. "May I?" Sarah asked, reaching for the baby. Something magical happened when Sarah held baby Penny. The crying stopped immediately. The baby looked up at Sarah with bright eyes and made soft cooing sounds. "She likes you," Emma said. Amazed, Sarah rocked the baby gently. "I used to sing to my Penny when she was fussy. Would it be okay if I sang to this little one?" "Of course," Marcus said. Sarah began to sing a soft lullaby about sunshine and rainbows. Her voice was gentle and sweet. Baby Penny listened with wide eyes, completely calm. Chief Martinez watched this tender scene and felt her own eyes getting wet. After 12 years of pain, Sarah was finding a moment of peace, but then something unexpected happened. Through the front window, Chief Martinez saw an old man walking slowly down the street. He stopped in front of the Reed house and stared. "Excuse me," Chief Martinez said, getting up. "I'll be right back." She went outside to talk to the old man. He was tall and thin with white hair and kind eyes. He looked familiar, but she could not place him. "Can I help you?" Chief Martinez asked. The old man looked startled. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just Old Man Peterson from down the street. I heard there was a baby named after that missing girl from years ago." Chief Martinez's heart started beating faster. "You're Peterson? You live near the hospital?" "Yes, ma'am. Have for 40 years. This was the witness who had seen a woman in scrubs leaving the hospital the night Penny disappeared. Chief Martinez had interviewed him many times over the years. "What brings you by here today?" she asked. Peterson looked embarrassed. "I probably shouldn't say this, but I've been thinking about that night a lot lately. The night the little girl vanished." "What about it?" "Well, I keep thinking about that woman I saw, the one in the nurse outfit who looked upset. I always wondered if I should have followed her." Chief Martinez had heard this before, but she listened patiently. Sometimes witnesses remembered new details after years of thinking. "I was walking past the hospital around midnight because I couldn't sleep," Peterson continued. "My wife had just died, and I was grieving something terrible. Anyway, I saw this woman come out the back door of the hospital. She was crying and kept looking back at the building. You told me this before. Can you remember anything else about her?" Peterson was quiet for a long moment. "You know, there is something. She got into a car that was parked in the visitor lot. But here's the strange part. The car was already running, like someone was waiting for her." This was new information. Chief Martinez felt excited. Someone was waiting for her. "I think so." The engine was running, and as soon as she got in, they drove away fast. "Could you see who was driving?" "No, it was too dark, but it looked like an older car. Maybe a sedan from the 1990s. Chief Martinez made mental notes. 2 people involved in Penny's disappearance. 1 woman in scrubs, 1 getaway driver. "Mr. Peterson, is there anything else you remember? Any other details that seemed strange?" The old man thought hard. "Well, there was one more thing. The woman dropped something when she got in the car. I went over to look the next morning, but the police had already cleaned up the area." "What did she drop?" "Looked like a piece of paper. Probably nothing important." Chief Martinez thanked Peterson and watched him walk slowly down the street. This new information about a second person changed everything. Penny's disappearance might have involved more people than they had thought. She went back inside, where Sarah was still holding the baby. The scene was peaceful, but Chief Martinez's mind was racing with new possibilities. "I need to ask you all something," Chief Martinez said. "Have any of you ever heard of someone who used to work at the hospital 12 years ago? Someone who might have been fired or had problems there?" They all shook their heads. Emma spoke up. "I've only lived here 3 years, and I mostly just go to work and come home. I don't really know many people from the hospital." Chief Martinez decided to share some of her thoughts. "I think more than one person was involved in Penny's disappearance. And I think whoever sent you that letter knows what really happened." Sarah looked up from the baby. "Do you think my Penny is still alive?" Chief Martinez chose her words carefully. "I don't know, Sarah, but I think someone feels guilty about what happened. And after 12 years, they're ready to tell the truth." As the visit ended, Sarah hugged Emma and Marcus goodbye. She kissed baby Penny's forehead gently. "Take good care of her," Sarah said. "And thank you for letting me hold her." Outside, Sarah and Chief Martinez walked to their cars together. That felt like a gift, Sarah said. Getting to hold a baby. Named Penny again. Chief Martinez smiled. Maybe that's why someone sent the letter. Maybe they wanted you to have that moment. As they drove away, Chief Martinez was already planning her next moves. She needed to research hospital employees from 12 years ago. She needed to find out who had been fired or quit around the time of Penny's disappearance, and she needed to talk to Dorothy Chin again. The elderly woman at the nursing home had seemed to know something. Maybe on a good day, she would be able to share her secret. The letter had opened a door that had been closed for 12 years. Behind that door were answers that Sarah Holloway had been waiting for. Chief Martinez was determined to find those answers, no matter how long it took. The next morning, Chief Martinez arrived at work with a new sense of purpose. She had 12 years of cold leads to review, but now she had fresh information. 2 people had been involved in Penny's disappearance. Someone had been waiting in a car while the woman in scrubs took Penny from her room. She spread all of Penny's case files across the conference room table. Photos, witness statements, hospital records, and interview notes covered every inch of space. Somewhere in this mountain of paper was the answer. Officer Chin knocked on the door. "Chief, I have the hospital employment records you requested. Everyone who worked there from 2013 to 2014. Chief Martinez took the thick folder eagerly. Anyone who was fired or quit around the time of Penny's disappearance. 3 people. A cafeteria worker who was caught stealing food. A security guard who fell asleep on duty. And a cleaning lady named Gladys Marsh who was fired for taking medication from supply closets." The name Gladys Marsh made Chief Martinez pause. Someone stealing medication would know how hospitals worked. They would know where to find scrubs and ID badges. "Do you have an address for Gladys Marsh?" Officer Chin flipped through his notes. Last known address was Sunrise Trailer Park, about 2 hours north of here. But that was 12 years ago. Chief Martinez felt her detective instincts tingling. A cleaning lady would have access to every part of the hospital. She would know the schedules and routines. And if she was angry about being fired, she might want revenge. "I want everything you can find on Gladys Marsh. Employment history, criminal record, current address if she's still alive." While Officer Chin worked on finding Gladys Marsh, Chief Martinez decided to visit Dorothy Chun at Sunset Manor again. The elderly woman had seemed to recognize something about Penny's case. Maybe today would be a better day for her memory, the nursing home. The nurse gave Chief Martinez hopeful news. "Mrs. Chun is having a very clear day today. She's been talking about wanting to tell someone something important." Chief Martinez found Dorothy in the activity room, working on a jigsaw puzzle. The elderly woman looked up when Chief Martinez sat down beside her. "You're the police chief," Dorothy said clearly. "You came to ask me about the little girl." "Yes, Mrs. Chun. Penny Holloway. Do you remember her?" Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. "I remember everything about that night. I've been carrying the guilt for 12 years. Chief Martinez felt her heart race. "What guilt? What do you remember?" Dorothy put down a puzzle piece with shaking hands. "I was at the hospital that night, visiting my friend Margaret. She was dying of cancer. I stayed late because the doctors said it might be her last night." "What time was this?" "Around 1 in the morning. I was walking to my car in the parking lot when I saw something that didn't look right." Chief Martinez leaned forward. "What did you see?" A woman in scrubs came out of the hospital's back door. She was carrying something wrapped in a blanket. But she wasn't walking like a nurse. She was nervous and kept looking around. This matched Old Man Peterson's story. What happened next? She walked to a car in the visitor lot. Someone was already in the driver's seat with the engine running. The woman put whatever she was carrying in the back seat and got in the passenger side. Chief Martinez's pulse quickened. "Did you see who was driving?" "It was too dark to see clearly, but I could tell it was an older person. Gray hair, maybe." "They drove away very fast." "Why didn't you report this at the time?" Dorothy started crying. "I thought about it, but I told myself I was imagining things. I was so upset about Margaret dying that I wasn't thinking clearly. By the time I heard about the missing little girl, I convinced myself I couldn't have really seen what I thought I saw." Chief Martinez handed Dorothy a tissue. "It's okay. You're telling me now. I've regretted staying quiet every day for 12 years. That poor family. That poor little girl." Chief Martinez showed Dorothy the mysterious letter. "Did you send this to the Reed family?" Dorothy studied the shaky handwriting. "I wish I had thought to do something like this. But no, this isn't my writing. As Chief Martinez drove back to the station, she felt like pieces of a puzzle were starting to fit together. Dorothy Chun and Old Man Peterson had both seen the same thing. A woman in scrubs and a getaway driver, the station, Officer Chun, had news about Gladys Marsh. I found her current address. She lives at Pine Grove Trailer Park, about 50 miles from here. She's 68 years old now and has a clean record since she was fired from the hospital. Any family? No children. No husband. She lives alone. Chief Martinez studied Gladys Marsh's old employee photo. She was in her 50s when she worked at the hospital, with gray hair and a stern expression. She would be the right age now to have shaky handwriting. I want to talk to her, Chief Martinez decided. But let's do some more research first. I want to know everything about her life since she left the hospital. Officer Chin spent the afternoon making phone calls. He learned that Gladys had worked several cleaning jobs after being fired from the hospital. She had been arrested once for shoplifting, but the charges were dropped. She lived quietly and kept to herself. One interesting thing, Officer Chin reported. She had a car stolen the same week Penny disappeared. Reported it to police in the next county. Said someone took it from her driveway. Chief Martinez felt a chill. What kind of car? 1995 Honda Accord. Blue sedan. This could be the car Peterson and Dorothy had seen in the hospital parking lot. Maybe Gladys had reported it stolen to cover her tracks. Chief Martinez decided to visit Sarah Holloway before going to see Gladys Marsh. Sarah deserved to know about these new developments. She found Sarah at her apartment, grading papers at her kitchen table. Sarah looked up hopefully when Chief Martinez knocked. Do you have news? Chief Martinez sat down across from her. I think we're getting close to finding out what happened to Penny. I have new witnesses who saw something that night. Sarah set down her red pen. What did they see? Chief Martinez explained about Dorothy Chun and Old Man Peterson's similar stories. She told Sarah about Gladys Marsh and the suspicious circumstances. Do you think this woman took my daughter? Sarah asked. I think she was involved. But Sarah, I need to prepare you. It's been 12 years. Even if we solve this case, the outcome might not be what we hope for. Sarah nodded slowly. I know, but I need to know the truth. I've lived with not knowing for too long. Chief Martinez reached across the table and squeezed Sarah's hand. Whatever we find, we'll face it together. That evening, Chief Martinez sat in her office planning her approach to Gladys Marsh. This could be the breakthrough she had worked toward for 12 years. Tomorrow, she would drive to Pine Grove Trailer Park and finally get some answers. She picked up Penny's school photo and made her familiar promise. I'm coming for the truth, Penny. Your mom deserves to know what happened to you. Outside her window, the sun was setting over Millbrook. Somewhere in this town, someone was carrying the weight of a terrible secret. But after 12 long years, that secret was finally about to come to light. Chief Martinez could feel it in her bones. The truth was close enough to touch. Chief Martinez barely slept that night. She kept thinking about Gladys Marsh and the stolen car. Every instinct told her this was the break she had been waiting for. But she needed to be careful. After 12 years, she could not afford to make mistakes. The next morning, she called the state police to request backup. If Gladys Marsh was dangerous, Chief Martinez did not want to face her alone. We'll meet you at Pine Grove Trailer Park, Sergeant Williams promised. 2 units, just in case. Before leaving town, Chief Martinez stopped at the elementary school to see Sarah. She found her in the classroom, setting up for the day. Sarah looked tired, like she had not slept much either. I'm going to talk to someone today who might have answers, Chief Martinez said quietly. I wanted you to know. Sarah gripped her desk. Is it her? The person who took Penny? I think so. But Sarah, you need to be prepared. This might not end the way we hope. Sarah nodded, though her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I understand. Just please find out what happened to my baby girl. Chief Martinez drove north toward Pine Grove Trailer Park with a heavy heart. She hoped she could bring Sarah the closure she needed. But after 12 years, the truth might be harder to accept than the mystery. Pine Grove Trailer Park was a collection of old mobile homes arranged in crooked rows. Some were well-maintained with small gardens and painted porches. Others looked forgotten, with broken windows and weedy yards. The state police were already waiting when Chief Martinez arrived. Sergeant Williams was a tall man with serious eyes who had worked many difficult cases. What do we know about this suspect? He asked. Chief Martinez showed him Gladys Marsh's file. Fired from the hospital for stealing medication 12 years ago. Had her car stolen the same week Penny disappeared. Lives alone at the end of the park. They found trailer number 47 at the back of the property. It was small and painted faded blue, with newspapers piled on the porch and cats wandering around. The yard. The smell was terrible, like garbage and animals. Chief Martinez knocked on the door. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. Police. We need to speak with Gladys Marsh. After a long moment, they heard shuffling footsteps inside. The door opened just a crack, and one suspicious eye peered out. What do you want? Ms. Marsh, I'm Chief Martinez from Millbrook Police. I need to ask you some questions about your time working at the hospital. The door opened wider to reveal a woman in her late 60s with gray hair and tired eyes. She was thin and wore a dirty housecoat. Behind her, Chief Martinez could see stacks of newspapers and trash everywhere. I haven't worked at that hospital in years, Gladys said. They fired me. Yes, I know. That's what I want to talk about. May we come in? Gladys looked nervous, but she stepped aside to let them enter. The inside of the trailer was even worse than the outside. Newspapers were stacked to the ceiling. Dishes filled the sink. The smell made Chief Martinez want to cover her nose. They sat at a small table covered with mail and cat food cans. Gladys kept glancing toward the back of the trailer like she was worried about something. Ms. Marsh, I'm investigating the disappearance of Penny Holloway 12 years ago. Do you remember that case? Gladys's face went pale. Everyone remembers that little girl. Where were you the night she disappeared? Home, I guess. I don't remember exactly. Chief Martinez pulled out a notepad. You reported your car stolen that same week. A blue Honda Accord. Can you tell me about that? Gladys fidgeted with her hands. Someone took it from my driveway. I reported it to the police. But it was found a week later, wasn't it? In the next county. I guess so. I didn't get it back. Chief Martinez studied Gladys's face carefully. The woman was clearly nervous and not telling the whole truth. Ms. Marsh, were you angry when the hospital fired you? Gladys's eyes flashed with old anger. They had no right to fire me. I worked hard for them. Just because I took a few pain pills for my back, they treated me like a criminal. You were caught stealing medication from the supply room. It was just aspirin and some antibiotics when I was sick. They acted like I was some kind of drug dealer. Chief Martinez leaned forward. Did you want to get back at them? Gladys was quiet for a long moment. Then she started crying. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, she sobbed. I just wanted to scare them. Show them their security was terrible. Chief Martinez felt her heart pound. What do you mean? I went back to the hospital that night. I still had my old uniform and ID badge. I wanted to take something to prove how easy it was to get in. Sergeant Williams moved closer to the table. This was starting to sound like a confession. What did you take? Chief Martinez asked gently. Gladys cried harder. I was going to take some supplies from the medication room. But then I saw that little girl sleeping all alone. She looked so sick and helpless. What happened next? I don't know what came over me. I wrapped her in a blanket and carried her out to my car. My friend Dorothy was waiting for me. Chief Martinez felt dizzy. Dorothy? Dorothy Chun. Yes. She was helping me because she felt bad that I got fired. She used to volunteer at the hospital and knew it wasn't fair. This was the missing piece. Dorothy Chun was not just a witness. She was an accomplice. Where did you take Penny? Gladys pointed toward the back of the trailer. I brought her here. I thought I would keep her for a few days, then bring her back. I wanted to teach the hospital a lesson about security. But something went wrong. Gladys nodded through her tears. She was sicker than I thought. She had a high fever and kept crying for her mama. I didn't know how to take care of a sick child. Chief Martinez felt sick to her stomach. Where is Penny now, Gladys? Gladys pointed toward the back door of the trailer. She's in the garden, under the rose bush. I buried her real nice with flowers. The words hit Chief Martinez like a physical blow. After 12 years of hoping and searching, Penny Holloway was dead. She had been dead all along. Sergeant Williams called for the crime scene team, while Chief Martinez tried to process what she had heard. A little girl had died because someone wanted revenge against a hospital. She died 3 days after I took her, Gladys continued. Her fever got worse, and she stopped eating. I tried to help her, but I didn't know what to do. When she died, I panicked. Why didn't you call for help? I was scared. I knew I would go to prison. So Dorothy and I buried her in my yard and tried to forget what happened. Chief Martinez thought about Dorothy Chun in the nursing home. No wonder she had seemed guilty and confused. She had been carrying this terrible secret for 12 years. Did Dorothy send the letter to the Reed family? Gladys looked confused. What letter? Chief Martinez realized Dorothy must have acted alone when she sent the mysterious letter. Maybe her guilt had finally become too much to bear. The crime scene team arrived and began carefully excavating the area behind the trailer. Chief Martinez had to call Sarah and tell her the news she had been dreading for 12 years. Sarah, we found out what happened to Penny. I'm so sorry, but she didn't survive. Sarah's scream of grief could be heard through the phone. Chief Martinez closed her eyes and let her own tears fall. After 12 years of hoping and searching, the mystery was finally solved. But the truth was more heartbreaking than anyone had imagined. Penny Holloway had died just 3 days after disappearing. She had been buried in a stranger's yard while her parents spent years searching for her. The case was closed, but the healing was just beginning. The crime scene team worked carefully in Gladys Marsh's backyard. They used small brushes and special tools to uncover what had been hidden for 12 years. Chief Martinez watched from a distance, her heart heavy with sadness. After 3 hours, they found her. Penny Holloway's remains were buried under the rose bush, just like Gladys had said. The little girl was wrapped in a hospital blanket and had been placed gently in the ground. Dr. Evans, the medical examiner, spoke quietly to Chief Martinez. The remains matched the age and size of the missing child. We'll need dental records to be completely sure, but I believe this is Penny Holloway. Chief Martinez nodded, fighting back tears. She had found Penny at last, but not the way she had hoped. The little girl who loved to draw rainbows had been gone for 12 years. At the police station, Gladys Marsh sat in an interview room, telling her full story. She seemed relieved to finally share the secret she had carried for so long. I never meant to hurt her, Gladys said over and over. I just wanted to teach that hospital a lesson. They had no right to fire me. Chief Martinez listened to every word, taking careful notes. The story was becoming clear. 2 women, angry and hurt, had made terrible choices that cost a little girl her life. Tell me about Dorothy Chen's role, Chief Martinez said. Gladys wiped her eyes with a tissue. Dorothy felt sorry for me when I got fired. She knew I was having money troubles and couldn't find another job. She offered to help me prove the hospital's security was bad. How did she help? She was supposed to be the lookout. She knew the hospital schedule because she volunteered there. She told me when the nurses would be busy and when the halls would be empty. Chief Martinez felt sick thinking about how this plan had gone so wrong. What happened after you took Penny? Dorothy followed us to my trailer in her car. We were both scared. We didn't know what to do with a sick child. Dorothy wanted to take her back to the hospital right away. Why didn't you? Gladys looked ashamed. I was too scared. I knew we would go to prison if we got caught. I convinced Dorothy to wait a day or 2 until we could figure out a plan. But there was no plan. 2 frightened women watched a sick little girl get sicker. They did not know how to care for her. They were too afraid to call for help. Penny kept asking for her mama, Gladys continued. She was so scared and confused. Dorothy and I took turns trying to comfort her, but we didn't know what we were doing. Chief Martinez had to ask the hardest question. How did she die? Her fever got very high on the 3rd night. She stopped eating and drinking. Dorothy wanted to call 911, but I was too scared. By morning, she was gone. The room was quiet except for the sound of Gladys crying. Chief Martinez felt angry and sad at the same time. A little girl had died because 2 adults were too selfish and frightened to do the right thing. What did you do after she died? Dorothy helped me bury her in my backyard. We planted the rose bush on top to mark the spot. Then we agreed never to talk about it again. Chief Martinez thought about Dorothy Chun in the nursing home. No wonder. The elderly woman seemed confused and guilty. She had been living with this terrible secret while her mind slowly failed her. Did Dorothy send the letter to the Reed family? Gladys nodded. She called me about a month ago. She was having one of her clear days and said she couldn't live with the guilt anymore. She wanted to do something to honor Penny's memory. So she found out about the Reed family's pregnancy. Dorothy still had friends who worked at the hospital. Someone told her about the young couple who was expecting a baby girl. Dorothy thought if she could get them to name the baby Penny Holloway, it would keep the little girl's memory alive. Chief Martinez finally understood. Dorothy's failing mind had found a way to ease her guilt. She could not bring Penny back, but she could make sure the name lived on. Did you know about the letter? Not until after Dorothy sent it. She called me crying and said she had done something to honor the little girl. I was scared someone would figure out what really happened. At Sunset Manor Nursing Home, Chief Martinez found Dorothy Chun in her room. The elderly woman was staring out the window, but her eyes were clearer than they had been in days. Mrs. Chun, I need to talk to you about Penny Holloway. Dorothy turned slowly. You found her, didn't you? Yes. Gladys told me everything. Dorothy started crying. I've been waiting 12 years for someone to find us. I couldn't live with the secret anymore. Chief Martinez sat down beside her. Why did you help Gladys that night? I felt sorry for her. She was so angry about being fired, and I thought the hospital had been unfair. I never imagined she would take a child. But you went along with it. Dorothy nodded, ashamed. I was scared too. When I saw what Gladys had done, I should have called the police right away. Instead, I helped her hide it. Why did you send the letter to the Reed family? Dorothy's eyes grew distant. I read about their baby in the newspaper. A little girl born on October 12th, so close to the anniversary of when Penny disappeared. It felt like a sign. You wanted them to name their baby after Penny. I wanted someone to remember her. I wanted her name to live on, even though she couldn't. Chief Martinez understood the old woman's reasoning, even though it had caused confusion and pain. Dorothy's guilt had driven her to find a way to honor the child she had failed to save. That evening, Chief Martinez had to make the most difficult phone call of her career. She called David Holloway in California. David, this is Chief Martinez. I have news about Penny. We found her. There was a long silence. Then David's voice, shaky and quiet. Is she alive? No, David. I'm so sorry. She died shortly after she was taken. David's sobs could be heard across the phone line. How? What happened to her? Chief Martinez explained as gently as she could. She told David about Gladys and Dorothy, about the failed plan for revenge, about how a sick little girl had died because two adults were too frightened to seek help. We're bringing her home, Chief Martinez promised. After 12 years, Penny is finally coming home. The next morning, Chief Martinez drove to Sarah's apartment. She found her sitting on the couch, still in the same clothes from the day before. Sarah's eyes were red from crying, but she looked up hopefully when Chief Martinez entered. Is it really her? Yes, Sarah. We're sure it's Penny. The dental records confirmed it. Sarah nodded slowly. Can I see her? Soon. We need to finish some procedures first, but then we can arrange for you to say goodbye properly. They sat together in silence for a while. Finally, Sarah spoke. At least I know now. At least I can stop wondering and hoping for something. That was never going to happen. Chief Martinez squeezed Sarah's hand. She's been found, Sarah? After 12 years, she's finally been found. Outside, the October sky was gray and cloudy. But for the first time in 12 years, Chief Martinez felt like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The mystery was solved. The truth was painful, but it was better than living with questions that had no answers. Penny Holloway was coming home at last. The news spread through Millbrook like wildfire. After 12 years, Penny Holloway had been found. The little girl, who had vanished from her hospital bed, was finally coming home. But the truth was harder than anyone had imagined. At the elementary school, teachers whispered in the hallways. Students who were too young to remember the original case heard the story from their parents. Mrs. Patterson, now 92, sat in her rocking chair and cried for the little girl she had prayed for every night. The local newspaper ran a front page story with Penny's school picture. The headline read, "Missing girl found after 12 years, died days after disappearance." Chief Martinez spent the morning answering phone calls from reporters, FBI agents, and other police departments. Everyone wanted to know how the case had finally been solved. It was the letter, Chief Martinez explained to each caller. Someone's guilt finally became too heavy to carry. At Sunset Manor, Dorothy Chin sat in her room, staring at the wall. The nurses said she had not spoken since Chief Martinez's visit. The weight of her secret was finally gone, but so was her will to keep fighting her failing memory. Her daughter Linda came to visit that afternoon. She held her mother's frail hand and spoke softly. Mom, I know you're in there somewhere. I know. You're sorry for what happened, but you tried to make it right at the end. You helped them find her. Dorothy squeezed her daughter's hand weakly. Deep in her confused mind, she understood that her long burden was finally over. Pine Grove Trailer Park. Gladys Marsh's trailer had been sealed off with yellow police tape. Neighbors gathered in small groups to whisper about the woman who had lived among them for years while hiding such a terrible secret. She always seemed strange, one neighbor said. All those cats and never talking to anyone. But I never thought she could hurt a child, another added. She seemed sad more than dangerous. Gladys was being held at the county jail while lawyers and judges decided what would happen to her. She was 68 years old and had confessed to kidnapping and causing the death of a child. Even though she had not meant to kill Penny, her actions had led to the little girl's death. Chief Martinez visited Gladys one more time before the case went to court. I need to ask you something, Chief Martinez said. Did Penny suffer? Gladys looked up with red, swollen eyes. I don't think so. She mostly slept. Dorothy and I tried to make her comfortable. We gave her water and tried to cool her fever with wet cloths. Did she ask for her parents? Every day? She kept saying she wanted to go home to her mama. It broke our hearts, but we were too scared to take her back. Chief Martinez felt anger and pity at the same time. Two frightened women had let a little girl die rather than face the consequences of their actions. At the county courthouse, District Attorney Rebecca Stone was preparing charges against both women. Dorothy Chin's dementia made her case complicated, but Gladys Marsh would face serious charges. Kidnapping, child endangerment, and concealing a death, District Attorney Stone explained to Chief Martinez. She could spend the rest of her life in prison. What about Dorothy Chin? We'll probably place her in a special care facility. Her mental condition makes a trial difficult. Chief Martinez felt satisfied that justice would be served, but it could not bring Penny back or heal the years of pain her family had endured. Meanwhile, Sarah Holloway was making preparations she had never wanted to make. After 12 years of hoping her daughter would come home alive, she was planning a funeral. The funeral director, Mr. Adams, was gentle and kind. We'll take care of everything, he promised. Penny will have the beautiful service she deserves. Sarah sat in the funeral home looking at caskets and flowers. It felt surreal after so many years of uncertainty. I want white roses, Sarah said quietly. Penny loved flowers. She used to pick dandelions in our yard and bring them to me like they were the most beautiful roses in the world. David Holloway flew in from California that evening. He looked older than his years, with gray hair and tired eyes. Sarah met him at the airport, and they hugged for the first time in 5 years. I'm so sorry, Sarah, David whispered. I'm sorry I gave up hope. I'm sorry I left you to carry this alone. You're here now, Sarah replied. That's what matters. They drove through Millbrook together, past the elementary school where Sarah taught, past the hospital where Penny had disappeared, past the cemetery where an empty grave had waited for 12 years. She was so little, David said quietly. Only 8 years old. She should have had a whole life ahead of her. At Sarah's apartment, they sat together looking at photo albums of Penny. Pictures of birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family vacations. A life cut short by strangers' cruel choices. Do you think she was scared? David asked. Sarah had wondered. The same thing every day for 12 years. Chief Martinez said she kept asking to go home. So she knew something was wrong. But maybe she thought it was just a mistake that would be fixed soon. Emma and Marcus Reed heard the news on television. They sat in their living room holding baby Penny while the reporter explained how the original Penny Holloway had been found. That poor family, Emma said through her tears. They waited 12 years for this news. Marcus looked down at their sleeping daughter. Do you think we should change her name? Would it be too painful for them? Emma shook her head. The letter writer wanted this little girl to carry Penny's name. Maybe that's even more important now. They decided to keep their daughter's name. Penny Holloway Reed would grow up knowing she was named after a little girl who had died too young. Maybe someday she would understand the honor and responsibility that came with that name. Chief Martinez spent the evening in her office, finally able to move Penny's file from her active cases to the solved cases cabinet. She had carried this case for 12 years. It had haunted her dreams and driven her to work countless extra hours. Now it was over. She picked up Penny's school photo one last time. The little girl's bright smile seemed different now. Not hopeful or questioning, but peaceful, like she was finally ready to rest. I kept my promise, Chief Martinez whispered to the picture. I found you, and I'm bringing you home. Outside her window, the lights of Millbrook twinkled in the darkness. The town that had been marked by tragedy 12 years ago was about to say goodbye to the little girl who had captured everyone's hearts. Asterisk tomorrow would bring Penny's funeral. The whole community would gather to honor her memory and support her family. It would be sad, but it would also be healing. After 12 years of questions, they finally had answers. After 12 years of searching, they finally had closure. Penny Holloway was coming home to stay. Saturday morning dawned gray and misty, as if the sky itself was mourning. The whole town of Millbrook seemed quieter than usual, preparing for a funeral that was 12 years in the making. A T. Grace Community Church. Flowers filled every corner. White roses, just like Sarah had wanted. Pink carnations from Penny's former classmates, who were now 20 years old. Sunflowers from the elementary school where Sarah taught. Every arrangement carried a message of love and remembrance. Chief Martinez arrived early, wearing her dress uniform. She had solved many cases over the years, but none had touched her heart like this one. Today was not about being a police officer. Today was about saying goodbye to a little girl who had waited too long to come home. Sarah stood at the front of the church with David beside her. They looked older than their years, worn down by 12 years of grief and uncertainty. But there was also a sense of peace in their faces. The waiting was finally over. "Thank you for coming," Sarah said to each person who approached her. Teachers from the school, neighbors who remembered Penny, strangers who had followed the case in the newspapers. The whole community had turned out to honor one little girl's memory. Emma and Marcus Reed sat in the back of the church with baby Penny in Emma's arms. They felt nervous about being there, knowing their daughter carried the same name as the girl they were mourning. But Sarah had asked them to come. "I want to meet her," Sarah had said on the phone. "I want to meet the little girl who will carry my Penny's name forward." As the service began, Pastor Williams spoke about hope and healing. He had been at the church for 20 years and remembered when Penny first disappeared. He had prayed for her family every Sunday since then. "We gather today not just to mourn a life that was cut short," Pastor Williams said, "but to celebrate the love that surrounded Penny Holloway. Her family never stopped looking for her. Her community never forgot her. And now, finally, she can rest in peace." Meredith Coolidge, the nurse who had found Penny's empty hospital room, stood to share a memory. She was older now, with gray streaks in her hair, but her voice was strong. "Penny gave me a drawing the day before she disappeared," Meredith said. "It was a rainbow with the words, 'Thank you' written in crayon. I still have that picture. It reminds me that even in the darkest times, there can be beauty and kindness." One by one, people shared their memories. Mrs. Patterson, now in a wheelchair but determined to attend, talked about the yellow ribbons the whole town had tied to trees. Maria Santos from the hospital described how Penny's disappearance had made everyone hold their own children closer. Sarah's second-grade students had made a banner that read, "We love you, Penny," in colorful letters. Each child had signed their name and drawn a small picture. Flowers, rainbows, hearts, and smiling faces covered the banner. When it was Sarah's turn to speak, she walked slowly to the front of the church. Her hands shook as she held the microphone, but her voice was clear. "My daughter Penny was 8 years old when she was taken from us," Sarah began. "She loved to draw pictures and sing songs. She was kind to everyone she met. She made friends easily and always shared her toys." Sarah paused, wiping tears from her eyes. "For 12 years, I wondered what happened to her. I hoped she was alive. Somewhere, maybe with a family who loved her. I hoped she was happy." The church was completely silent except for the sound of people crying softly. "Now I know the truth," Sarah continued. "My little girl died just 3 days after she was taken. She never got to grow up, never got to go to high school or college, never got to have children of her own." Sarah looked out at the crowded church. "But she was loved, and she is remembered. And today, another little girl carries her name." Sarah turned toward the back of the church where Emma and Marcus Reed sat with baby Penny. "Emma and Marcus, would you please come forward?" The young couple looked surprised but walked to the front of the church. Emma held baby Penny close to her chest. The church was so quiet you could hear the baby's soft breathing. "This is Penny Holloway Reed," Sarah said, her voice full of emotion. "She was born on October 12th, just 3 days before the anniversary of my Penny's disappearance. Someone who knew our story asked her parents to give her this name." Sarah gently touched the baby's tiny hand. "My Penny will never grow up. But this little Penny will." She'll learn to walk and talk and go to school. She'll have the life my daughter never got to have. Sarah looked at Emma and Marcus. Thank you for keeping her name alive. Thank you for making sure she won't be forgotten. Emma started crying. We promised to tell her about the first penny. We promised to make sure she knows what an honor it is to carry this name. The service ended with the entire congregation singing Amazing Grace. Voices joined together in harmony, filling the church. With music that seemed to lift everyone's spirits toward heaven, the cemetery, they laid Penny Holloway to rest in the same plot where an empty grave had waited for 12 years. The headstone now had dates. Penny Holloway, 2005 to 2013, forever in our hearts. Chief Martinez stood at attention as they lowered the small casket into the ground. She had kept her promise. She had found Penny and brought her home, after most people had left. Sarah remained at the graveside with David. They stood together in silence, finally able to say goodbye properly. She's at peace now, David said quietly. Yes, Sarah replied. And so are we. Emma and Marcus approached with baby Penny. Sarah looked down at the sleeping infant and smiled through her tears. She's beautiful, Sarah whispered. My Penny would have loved her. As the sun broke through the clouds, Sarah felt something she had not experienced in 12 years. Hope. The mystery was solved. The waiting was over. Her daughter was finally home. Goodbye, my sweet girl, Sarah said to the grave. Mama loves you. And for the first time in 12 years, Sarah Holloway walked away from that cemetery knowing exactly where her daughter was. Penny was safe, she was at peace, and she was finally home. The baby in Emma's arms opened her eyes and looked up at the sky, as if she could see something the adults could not. Maybe she could see another little girl with curly hair and a bright smile, finally free to run and play in a place where no one could ever hurt her again. Penny Holloway had waited 12 years to come home. But love had brought her back at last. That's the end of Penny's story, a tale of love, loss, and the power of memory that spans 12 years. Sometimes the truth is harder than the mystery, but healing can only begin when we finally have answers that we'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment and tell us your city or country. Your stories and support mean everything to us. That if this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. When you subscribe, you're helping us spread kindness and bring more meaningful stories to people around the world. And don't forget to click on the video appearing on your screen right now for another story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thank you for listening. And remember, every story deserves to be told, and every person deserves to be remembered. Until next time, take care of each other.